House Republican leadership has unveiled a revised plan to avoid a government shutdown. They've opted to ditch a key provision from their first attempt the Democrats opposed. The House GOP leadership plan effectively punts the government funding fight past the presidential election to right before Congress breaks for Christmas. House Speaker Mike Johnson's original plan had the spending bill include the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. That's the SAVE Act. It requires voters to show proof of citizenship to cast ballots. Democrats said the SAVE Act was a non-starter. The House bill failed on the floor last week, so the new bill will eliminate that. But it also includes $230 million for additional Secret Service funding that both sides had asked for.
What is interesting here is that former President Donald Trump was adamant that the SAVE Act needed to be part of any government funding bill, and if it wasn't, then there should be a government shutdown. So you have House Republicans going against what Trump had stated very clearly in a Truth Social post. I mean, he laid it out there. I think most of it was in caps.
House leadership. Yeah. Not all the Republicans.
No, there are going to be some Republicans who will vote against this because of that. But in order to get some Democrats on board to get the vote to where they needed to be to pass the funding bill, they had to make this change to the final bill. It's just punting the ball a little bit longer down the road to December when they'll have to do this whole thing again.
But it avoids a shutdown before the election.
Exactly. And the bottom line is members of Congress did not want to have to deal with that.
That's right.
They're trying to campaign and win elections. And I think there was some concern among Republicans as to how that would play, too, ahead of the election. Would they be able to put it on Democrats? Would the American people more blame Democrats for the shutdown than Republicans? I think they were worried that Republicans would get the blame. And
it's kind of hard to do that when you're the majority.
Yeah, well, in the House, not in the Senate. But the Senate, I mean, it seems like they've come to an agreement that will pass both chambers and Biden will sign. And then you've got, I don't know what they're going to do in December, because how extensive of bill are you going to pass when you've got a new Congress that's coming in just a couple of weeks and a new president, regardless of who wins? It's either going to be Harris or Trump. So,
maybe they'll just shut the government down and wait for the new Congress.
Yeah, maybe they could do that.
They'd get just as much done if they were shut down.
Right. The extra funding for Secret Service protection, though, that was important. And there was a bill, I think that passed there was zero opposition to it. I think it passed over 400 votes for it and none against it. So
yeah. Well, obviously, with what happened with President Trump during the summer and more recently in South Florida, it made a lot of sense.
Yep.
So Florida has told school districts around the state that they may not teach teenagers about contraception, show pictures showing human reproductive anatomy, or discuss topics like sexual consent and domestic violence. So as a result, a couple of school districts are withdrawing their sex education plans, including Orange County and Broward County. Broward has until October to tell the state how it plans to teach about reproductive health during this coming school year or during the existing school year. But they also know the Florida Department of Education does not like some of the lessons that they claim are not age or developmentally appropriate. So one of the members of the Orange County School Board says that this is basically a move backwards, and that students are just going to get the information from their phones or their friends or other less reliable sources than the schools.
So how they're going to try to teach sexual education without...
They're going to say, don't do this.
It's called abstinence.
Yeah. Well, that, yes. But I was more focused on the part where they can't get into the anatomy.
Yeah. I mean, they're like saying... boys and girls are like kind of the same. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I thought we were trying to point out that there are differences between boys and girls.
Yeah, I don't know. But all I can tell you is that it's interesting that this story came up because my friend was telling me over the weekend that her son, who is in high school, walked into the bathroom at his high school the other day, and there were a boy and a girl having sex in one of the stalls, and he walked right out.
So they've already figured that part out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they're getting their own education.
Well, here's the thing.
Here's the question I have. Why is the state imposing these kinds of mandates on the entire school system, the public school system, when you can go to a charter school, you can go to a religious school, or you can homeschool and not teach anything about sex ed?
And
Why are they mandating this on the entire student?
Yeah, I think this should just be up to the
state.
local
and I
school
think
boards.
you can also opt out too if they send home a notice when
Yeah.
your kids are going to have those lessons on reproduction and all that, and you can opt your kids out. I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So if you don't like it, just opt your kid out. But I think they all need to learn about it, and they need to learn the contraceptive thing.
I mean, by that age, they're already drawing that kind of stuff on the desks anyway.
Right? Yeah.
Aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, and they're doing it in the bathroom in the school.
Right. Yeah, the abstinence only thing. I'm sorry. I think that's a
Well,
mistake.
they seem to be ignoring a lot of the statistics
Yeah.
from the 60s, 70s, and 80s about teen pregnancy
Mm-hmm.
and how it reversed
Yeah.
when you start teaching about what's going on.
Right.
But clearly there's a group of conservatives that just don't believe that kids should hear about that at all.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the age it. Like, when does the sex ed start?
school.
High school.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean,
Look, I had sex ed in high school, and there was like the walk of shame from a couple students who were not allowed to take the class. They had to get up
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
and walk out,
Sucks.
and you knew that their parents were the ones that forced them to do it, and it was pretty brutal.
And
but
those
you
are
know,
probably the kids that are doing it, you know?
Yeah. Of course.
Maybe.
But look, there's a way to teach. I mean, you're not pulling up Mark Robinson's nude Africa site
Right, yeah.
in the classroom and teaching kids that way. I mean,
Pornhub.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to watch a movie today, kids.
Yeah, you're not doing that. So, I mean, there's a way to teach it, you would think, or have the opt-outs.
Yeah.
I don't know that. And
Well-
I think, bottom line, I think you should leave it to the local school boards. That should be a decision, their curriculum, how they want to decide.
No, let's see what the governor has to say on it.
Yeah.
It's probably going to go down as popular as the paving over the state parks. So a lot of hurricane fans made their way from South Florida to the Tampa Bay area. Cam Ward and number 8 Miami just keep rolling along. So Ward threw for 404 yards, 3 touchdowns Saturday night, and he also set a record. He became the 13th player in NCAA history to top 15,000 passing yards in a career in college. Really impressive. So 50-15, the final over USF. Exciting to see that crowd there, but obviously USF was definitely out of their league.
Yeah, I think over 58,000 people at Ray J for USF game. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of them were Miami fans.
Oh,
There's a
definitely.
lot of orange in the stands, but still, it was a great environment. USF played them tough for the first half. This went down about how I thought it was going to go down. It was what we had said on Friday. You're probably going to have a close game for, a half or so, and then Miami was going to pull ahead, and that's really what happened. Miami looks really impressive. It's hard to get a sense as to whether or not Miami is that good or their competition just hasn't been great up to this point, but there's no reason they can't run the table. I think the best team they play moving forward is maybe Louisville. That's about it. They do not have a tough schedule, so an unbeaten record is not out of the question for Miami, which will put them right in the playoffs, obviously, and give them a chance at a national title.
Meanwhile, USF and Alabama and
Tough.
Miami in the
start.
same
Yeah.
season.
Really
Wow.
tough start.
I mean, I give them credit for playing those teams. I
Yep.
mean, that's a bold schedule, but man, it's tough to have a winning record. with
They
that.
show they're a gritty, tough team, that they're moving in the right direction, even with the loss that looks like that with the final score. I think the coach is doing a lot of good things. I think USF is on the right path here, and they don't have a difficult schedule moving forward. So now we'll really get to see how good they are. I mean, it's one thing to lose to Alabama and Miami, but can you beat the teams that you should beat moving forward and end up with a winning record?
That's key for their season.
Yeah. All right. Chris Trankman with today's top stories. Chris, thanks so much.
Thank you.